to solve life's most difficult problems take some truly weird tools. From tongues that detect and tongues that project, to silent hunters and screaming alarm systems. These are some of the strangest adaptations in nature's toolbox. This is the Ai, a type of lemur found only on the island of Madagascar. Local legends cast it as a demon, a creature that can kill just by pointing a finger. The truth has nothing to do with the supernatural, but it's no less amazing. To find its prey, it uses a multi-purpose digit. From the differences in sound, the Ai is able to build a mental map of the hollow channels inside. It listens in for the slightest vibration that could signify something to eat, like a grub. Sharp incisors strip away the bark. The Ai's bony middle finger changes roles, becoming a scraper. It claws in and out of gaps, enlarging the hole. The Ai's finger transforms into a hook. A sharp fingernail spears the grub. It's dragged up and out, and the Ai gets its meal. Madagascar has no end of bizarre creatures. Chameleons are better known as hiders than hunters, but this perception isn't always accurate. When it comes to catching prey, the panther chameleon has several specialized tools at its disposal. Each eye can operate independently and rotate a full 180 degrees to spot prey several meters away. It feeds on insects that can hop, fly, and scurry away to a safe distance. But reaching a safe distance is rather more difficult when your enemy has a tongue like this. The chameleon's tongue springs out of its mouth before the bug has a chance to spot it. Moving at over 1,600 kilometers an hour, the tongue unfurls almost half a meter to reach the far branch. A mucus-covered tip slams into the bug. It's reeled back in and eaten. This female black widow spider sits in her web, waiting for her food to come to her. It's not as easy as it sounds. She has 8 eyes, but barely uses them. She perceives much of her world through her hairy legs. She finds her prey mainly by sensing vibrations along her web. Then she charges blindly across her high-wire grid. First she bites. Neurotoxins paralyze the struggling moth. Digestive enzymes turn its insides into goo. Then she wraps it up. Her back legs pull silk from one of her spinnerets, the spider's silk-spinning organs, and she encases the moth. The wrapping keeps the spider out of harm's way, and if she's already eaten, it preserves the moth for a later meal. Spiders have no teeth with which to chew. She sucks up the bug's insides as a liquid lunch. Even a male of her own species is fair game. As he approaches her, she feels the vibrations across the web made by his 8 legs. She lets him approach. He spools his sperm into her. But once she has taken his sperm, she turns on the male, and he becomes just another meal. In Kenya, this hippo has endured a difficult day being harassed by a pride of lions. It escapes to a spring, looking for a little pampering. Carp nip away at dead skin and parasites. Cichlid fish clean the bristles on his tail. And barbelfish have the dubious pleasure of taking care of the hindquarters. And they're pretty diligent about it. In fact, they compete for the honor because hippo dung is full of nutrients. As the hippo's skin is pampered and cleansed, it gets the same treatment in its mouth. Now it is reinvigorated for life in the Kenyan heat. This scaly-skinned pangolin is out looking for dinner. The pangolin isn't particularly ferocious. It doesn't even have teeth. And it's not very fast. It wobbles along on its hind legs and tail. But it does have 2 formidable tools. First, its huge claws. The pangolin uses them to pry out rocks and rip up hard, dry ground. It does so with one aim, to find ants and termites. And once it rips open the side of an ant colony, it dives in head first. Its second strange tool is a long, sticky tongue, which slips through every crack and crevice. Continually lubricated by an overactive saliva gland, the tongue gathers up thousands of ants every day. The ants defend their colony the only way they know how, swarming and biting the pangolin. But its scales are a formidable obstacle. Its eyes have thick lids. Its ears and nose have special valves that close when the ants attack. The surviving ants may be able to regroup and rebuild, but when they do, the destructive pangolin will be back looking for another meal. The proboscis monkey has a nose for detecting trouble. For these mammals, native to the island of Borneo, size matters. This male is the leader of a small harem of females and young. Males are around 70 centimeters tall and weigh twice as much as the smaller females. And a big nose generates big interest from the ladies. This stretch of mangrove swamps is his domain, and here he must watch over his harem. They forage in the trees for young leaves and fruit. Crocodiles lurk underneath. This mother knows how to cross quietly and with little splashing. But the youngsters try a different method. Leaping across keeps them out of the water, usually, but the noise attracts the crocodiles. The mother is still midstream. The male spots the crocodile. His large nose amplifies the warning call over the noise of the water. The mother turns. The crocodile moves in for the kill. This time, the crocodile misses out on a meal. But he'll always be there, waiting for the next mistake. To protect themselves from predators, the Earth's creatures have developed an array of bizarre defenses. The hunters can easily become the hunted. Not taking risks may mean missing a meal, but it may also mean living to see another day. These animals have evolved some of the world's weirdest defenses. From poisons to projectiles and feats of speed. Hailing from the west of Canada and the United States, the rough-skinned newt is much tougher than it looks. Looking for tiny invertebrates, this newt has wandered out of its riverside domain and into the garter snake's territory. The newt seems unaware, or perhaps unconcerned. Tiny glands in its skin are home to deadly bacteria. They produce tetrodotoxin, a lethal poison that paralyzes the muscles, stopping the diaphragm and heart. Garter snakes, however, have evolved a tolerance to tetrodotoxin. An arms race between snake and newt has led to higher and higher levels of both resistance and toxicity, to the point that the newt contains enough poison to kill a creature far larger than its normal predators, like a human. The newt arches its back and displays its orange underbelly, a clear warning to the snake. The garter snake decides it's not worth the risk. But not all predators heed the warning. The newt returns to its stream, only to encounter another threat, a bullfrog. Bullfrogs are insatiable and indiscriminate. It swallows the newt whole. The stomach acids inside the bullfrog's belly are now in a race against time with the newt's poison. The frog collapses and dies. And the newt climbs out and is finally on its way home. This is not a plant. It's a sloth. Sloths are tree dwellers and possibly the slowest moving mammals in the world, with an average ground speed of around 2 meters per minute. Algae grow in the sloth's shaggy fur, attracting friendly moths. Their presence helps conceal the sloths from predators, who mistake it for just another lump of moth-infested greenery. Once a week, sloths must descend from their arboreal homes to defecate. The moths breed in the sloth's excrement, so it's a good partnership. But the sloth's movements capture attention. Even the very best camouflage has its limits. When camouflage is not an option, a creature needs to learn to stand its ground. The Goliath bird-eating spider is a species of tarantula. Its nearly 30-centimeter long leg span could cover a person's head. But its name is misleading, as it hardly ever eats birds. It prowls the Amazon mainly in search of insects, with the occasional frog or rodent. Fangs almost 2.5 centimeters long pump neurotoxins into the dying mouse. The spider hauls it back to its burrow, liquefying the insides before sucking its meal dry. But this fearsome hunter has predators of its own. There are some mammals and snakes that would make short work of it. But the spider has such poor eyesight that it cannot visually locate the threat. The spider usually relies on vibration-sensitive hairs to warn it of danger. Tonight, danger comes in the form of a coati, a member of the raccoon family native to Southern and Central America. The spider bares its fangs as a warning. But the coati isn't frightened. The spider needs a long-range weapon. Unfortunately, it has one. In fact, it has many. Hairs on its body are tipped with tiny stinging barbs. By rubbing its legs, it flicks them into the air, creating a cloud of miniature missiles. They burn the coati's eyes, nose, and mouth. The coati is no longer keen on this meal, and the Goliath bird-eating spider escapes unharmed. From the jungles of South America to the deserts of North America. This is a horned lizard. It's also known as the horned frog and the horny toad, but it's no amphibian. It's a reptile with a bizarre self-defense strategy. It eats mostly harvester ants, but it has no fancy method of hunting. When a foraging column of ants crosses its path, it simply laps them up. The ants try to fight back, but their mandibles are of little use against the lizard's scales. But a coyote is a different matter. When faced with this predator, the lizard calls on its strange but effective defense strategy. Thin blood vessels around the eyes rupture under pressure and squirt blood at the attacker. The blood contains canine-repellent chemicals. The coyote flees, leaving the lizard to enjoy his meal of ants. Crocodiles are fearsome predators in the water. On land, one smaller species, the freshwater crocodile of Australia, has developed a special move, the gallop. The crocodile races at speeds of up to 25 kilometers per hour. For a creature that spends most of its time in the water, it's an impressive feat. The reptile's back legs propel it up and forwards. Its front legs touch down and reset for the next push over land or through the air. For some animals, survival comes from simply acting weirdly. These creatures' behaviors, strategies, and habits may seem bizarre. But there is always a method behind the madness. These are fire ants, living in a colony several 100,000 strong. Rapacious, tenacious, and industrious, they are impossible to eradicate as long as their queen is alive. But this colony is facing that threat. The river beside it is flooding. The deluge rushes in, but the fire ants are skilled survivors. The colony floats out as a living raft. The most precious members of the colony, the larvae and the queen, are kept safely dry in the middle. The queen ant can give birth to some 3 million ants over her lifetime. If they can reach dry land, they stand a good chance of rebuilding. But there is danger below. Fish pick off the ants one by one. If enough ants are pulled down, the raft will collapse and the colony will be destroyed. The ants stay together and they reach the other side. They hoist the ant larvae up to dry ground, ensuring the survival of their colony for future generations. And with their survival secure, the fire ants can get back to what they're good at, attacking every living thing in sight. A killer stalks the treetops of the Amazon, ravenous, relentless, and without pity. The pygmy marmoset is the world's smallest monkey, and it's a seasoned hunter. It can 4.5 meters in a single bound and move along the slightest of branches to snatch its prey. However, The insects provide nothing more than an afternoon protein boost. This family of marmosets gets its main meal from a curious-looking tree. The bumps are scar tissue, built up over months of daily attacks by these vicious sapsuckers. The marmosets feed mostly on gum. Using specially adapted teeth and claws, they rip open the freshly covered wounds and keep the sap flowing until the tree is too scarred to provide any longer. Then they'll move on to fresh territory that's inhabited by other marmosets. Marmosets don't take kindly to interlopers. The incoming marmosets invade, desperate to get the gum. The other marmosets retreat to a nearby tree, where they watch helplessly as the newcomers take their food. Chirping and scent marking, the parents gather up their frightened young and launch a counterattack. The invaders are forced to flee. And everything is back the way it was. To a marmoset, no prize is greater than tree gum. In this garden, something strange is going on. Hedgehogs are on the prowl. Not looking for food or potential mates, but for strange smells. Like cans of turpentine. When a hedgehog smells something intriguing, it licks it up. Turpentine is hazardous to humans, but hedgehogs have a strong resistance to toxins. Other hedgehogs find a dropped packet of cigarettes and start to munch on the tobacco. And then they lather up and spread it all over their spines. It may take a while to cover all 5,000 spines, but the hedgehogs have the time and the contortion skills to get the job done. Some experts argue that hedgehogs anoint themselves to tip their spines with poison that is toxic to their enemies. Others maintain that the toxins are used to kill off parasites. And another theory suggests that they are trying to fool predators by masking their own scent. The earth is filled with creatures behaving weirdly. We have so much still to learn about them. This next species has no spines to cover its body. Its name suggests it has no covering at all. The naked mole rat is in fact neither a mole nor a rat. And much about its behavior is strange. Mole rats spend their entire lives in virtually complete darkness, weaving their way through an underground network of burrows and tunnels. Within their dark universe, they've evolved a rigid society that has more in common with ants or bees than with a typical mammal. At the top is a queen. She is the mother of all the other mole rats in the colony, anything from a few dozen to a few hundred. As long as she lives, she and a few chosen males will be the only ones that breed. The queen keeps the rest from mating by sheer intimidation. Their lives are all work and no foreplay. Some are drafted as soldiers to protect the colony from rival mole rats and predators. A quick sniff determines insider from interloper. Other mole rats tend to the young, clean burrows, dig tunnels, and look for food. Their large incisors are outside their mouths, so the mole rats can shovel away without eating dirt. They dig in teams. The lead digger carves out the tunnel. Others pass the dirt back up the tunnel and out onto the surface. To a mole rat, traveling backwards or forwards is much the same thing. Though nearly blind, special hairs on their body help guide them and tell them where they are going. Even when traveling within the tunnels, each one's status in the hierarchy is clearly visible. The more senior members of the colony take the high road, while the juniors wriggle through underneath. The tunnels are only a few centimeters wide, but a full-fledged colony can stretch almost a kilometer. All this work is done to find their principal food, tubers, scattered across the savannah. One of these giant roots can feed a colony for 2 to 3 weeks. And though they are born into a strict hierarchy, when it comes to food, everyone is equal. The honey badger can be considered to be among the world's weirdest creatures due to its utter fearlessness. Though only about half a meter long and weighing less than 15 kilograms, this honey badger is so combative it can drive off larger animals like jackals and leopards. And while many animals avoid bees, the honey badger drives right into their hive to eat their larvae. The badger's thick skin offers some protection from bee stings. At dusk, this badger spots a puff adder with some freshly killed prey. Puff adders are among the most venomous snakes in the world. One bite from these fangs could kill a lion. But that's not going to stop this honey badger from stealing the snake's supper. And when the snake's dinner is not enough, the honey badger goes after the snake itself. This time around, the honey badger may have bitten off more than it can chew. It looks like its days are numbered. But 2 hours later, the badger rises and, seemingly as ravenous as ever, goes back to its meal. All animals have the need to breed. In the game of life, he who reproduces wins. Parents must do whatever it takes to give their young an edge in the battle for survival. They are tucked inside pouches and hidden underground, cleaned, weaned, and carried around. Some parents even die for their unborn young. This praying mantis has been superbly engineered for speed and power. It has a voracious appetite for other insects. This male has an appetite for something else. Autumn is in the air, and the male praying mantis is driven to breed. He must mate before the winter arrives. This is his best chance. A well-fed female is a more willing mate. He latches on to her shapely thorax and inserts his sperm into her abdomen. The female waits. Mating can last for hours, but not in this case. The female devours the male's head. His dying spasms may actually increase the amount of sperm delivered. When the female has had enough, she breaks things off and dumps the male. It seems harsh, but unlike thousands of other mantises who died early, he got to breed. Munching on the male's carcass provides the female with additional nourishment she can use when she lays her eggs, up to 200 of them. They'll stay here over the winter and hatch in the spring. Grey kangaroos like to keep their young close by. A baby kangaroo will call its mother's pouch home for almost a year. But first, it must make the strange journey to warmth and safety. At 1 month old, the baby kangaroo, barely more than the size of a jelly bean, emerges from the uterus, one of two which the female kangaroo has. Once outside her body, it grips her fur, and though it still hasn't developed eyes, it instinctively relies on its forelegs to crawl up towards her pouch. It takes a few minutes for it to reach its destination. When it reaches her pouch, it latches on to its mother's teat. It won't be traveling anywhere else for a long time. Over the next few months, it grows inside the pouch. Even once the young joey ventures outside, it's still not ready to break free of its mother. For 9 more months, the youngster will rely on its mother's pouch for shelter, transportation, and protection. Even after it leaves the pouch, it stays by its mother's side, nursing for an additional 1 to 6 months. But now the pouch is off limits. Its mother is already carrying her next baby, and this joey must learn to stand on his own 2 feet. To many, these tadpoles are a tasty treat. They are a favorite meal for bugs, fish, and even each other. Few of the tadpoles will live long enough to crawl out of the water. In its forest home of South America, the Darwin's frog resembles an overweight leaf. But not all that extra weight is his own. The male's vocal sac serves a special purpose, raising his young. The female will lay around a dozen eggs. Those that hatch into tadpoles are gulped up by the father until they're ready to fend for themselves. Inside his vocal sac, they transform into miniature versions of their father. And this approach to child rearing works, because they make it out alive. Death, however, often plays a strange part in the cycle of life. The untimely death of this shrew is good news for the burying beetle. For the enterprising insect, a cadaver is a perfect place to raise a family. A female arrives. Impressed with the male beetle's find, she moves in. The beetles will bury the body up to half a meter underground. They must hide it from vultures and other scavengers. For them, the dead shrew is just another meal. But for the burying beetles, this cadaver is more than just a food source. Burying it is only the first step in a long remodeling process. Their mandibles strip away the fur. Chemicals are secreted over the body to prevent it from spoiling, until it becomes unrecognizable from its former self. It's now ready for the arrival of many hungry babies, up to 30, depending on the size of the corpse. The parents protect them, clean them, and feed them. They chew up the corpse and regurgitate it as beetle baby food. By the time the corpse is gone, the larvae will be ready to transform into adults. They'll go out into the world in search of a dead body of their very own. The burying beetle and its creepy home is surely among the world's weirdest creatures. But there are many bizarre animals out there. From spike-covered bandits and armor-plated rustlers, to battling giants and tiny hunters. The world's strangest animals are on the move.